Hello YouTube, it's your boy FE, and I'm back. It's been a long few years since I've last uploaded to YouTube, but very recently I've been playing for the official Smogon Tournament, OST. Last weekend I actually played in the finals of OST versus mncmt and the fake Jambat, and I know it's been a long time since I've last uploaded, a few years, but I few people have been asking me, FE, are you going to upload again? FE, are you going to cover your OST matches? So I promised that if I got this far in OST, I would cover my matches. So I'm going to be uploading this match, the finals, and I'll probably go back semis, quarters, top 16. I might even do the round before that where I think I played Sakri. So I'll recover like for the last 4 or 5 series I played of OST. This will probably go up. Yeah, so I played last weekend. So I played this on Saturday. If you haven't seen it yet, I won't spoil the result, but you'll definitely see what happens once I cover the games. And yeah, I'll just keep uploading for the next week or so once I get through all of those. I'm not planning to upload more after that. I'm not making a full return to YouTube. I just really like analyzing teams and games, and I always feel like going over your own games is the best way to improve, and I obviously everyone still has room for improvement always, so I really like going back and analyzing the games, so I'm going to be covering my finals versus mncmt. So yeah, I want to talk a little bit about my teams and my team building philosophy a little bit before I get into the game. So I'm a really aggressive player in SS. I really hate using stuff like Wish Port Clef, even though it's really good and really annoying. For some reason I just don't like using it. I feel like it doesn't put a lot of pressure, and little things like knockoff or T-Wave can really hinder it from being a good defensive check to a lot of stuff. And I don't like using Toxapex, even though it's annoying. I don't like using Hippo, even though it's annoying. Like, some of these mons I find are really annoying for me to face, but with the style in which I like to play games, they just don't really suit me that well, so I tend to stay away from them. I also don't like choice breakers. I feel like a lot of the times, like, Specs or Bandages Slash, Specs Curum, Specs Chandelure, they're really fantastic breakers. Choice Band Tracheon, they're all fantastic. Choice Band Vish, or Choice Scarfish even, but like, I feel like a lot of the times making progress with them can kind of become a guessing game, and it's just, I really hate those situations. Of course, I despise being on the defensive end of it too, because it's also kind of a prediction on the defensive end, but I really hate feeling like the progress I make is limited by like a play-by-play prediction. I like to kind of make a big overall game plan where a certain mon is weakening another certain mon for a certain outcome later in the game, and I like to make progress with setup, and I just don't like choice breakers all too much, so I tend to avoid those as well. And one other thing I really think is important in team building, especially when you're playing a tournament and you're in the late stages of the tournament, finals, semifinals, is I really like surprise value and anti-meta value. I feel like if you can build a team that kind of is solid, but also has an edge versus a lot of the common defensive cores and things you might see, that immediately gives you an advantage. And if you have something that the opponent can't predict, something that puts them in a situation they have not expected or even played before, it can cause them to make mistakes, it can cause them to just have a lot of trouble dealing with your mons in the proper way. So keeping those things in mind, the first team that I brought features a Mew. So Mew is really interesting. I think I've seen like people using Cosmic Power, Stored Power sets. I think there's been some sort of block taunt set that's been running around. I've not seen it, but the thing I don't like about sets like those is I feel like if you don't get into a very particular situation, you're very limited in making progress. Like, if you're not sweeping with that Mew, or at least if you're not sweeping with it, it's probably going to be dead weight, things like that. Or if you're not blocking a teleport clef with that Mew, then what else are you going to be doing in the game? So I feel like those types of sets, they have their place, and I think especially Cosmic Power Mew is really scary and dangerous, but I want to be a bit more offensive, and I realized that Nasty Plot Mew was a really fun idea that I felt had a lot of potential versus common defensive cores. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. So things like, the most common defensive cores you'll see, Clefable, Seismitoad plus Corviknight, or maybe Mandibles plus a Steel like Aegislash, like Mincemeat has, or Jirachi, something like that. Very common core. You'll see Ferrothorn, Rotom, Heat, often paired with Hippowdon and Sand, sometimes Toxapex on that. I mean, Rotom Heat and Cleftoad also, like Rotom Heat is very splashable. So those are like the very most common defensive cores you'll see. And I think Mew is really fantastic at breaking those up because of like, the SS, I think has kind of shifted what the average base stats of all the mons are. So something like 100 special attack on Mew is actually really strong. And its bulk is really, really good too, and its speed is also really, really good. Just because the average has kind of gone down, I think Mew's stats play better. And Nasty Plot Mew with Psyshock does like 80 to Clefable, it completely tosses it, and Moonblast is doing very little. It's probably not even maybe a 4-hit KO, but barely there. Like Moonblast just does not do that much. You can get dropped, but Psyshock will still 2-hit KO Clefable. You can OHKO Aegislash with +2 Flamethrower. You can even OHKO some Corviknight with Flamethrower. And the last move I have is Draining Kiss. And Draining Kiss is really, really interesting. It's quite weak, but it's really potent, and I think it makes Mew incredibly strong when paired with Weakness Policy. So the reason I was running Weakness Policy is because I feel like, okay, Mew is pretty good at taking advantage of Clefable to take better advantage of Seismitoad. Seismitoad is going to click Knock Off. It probably won't Toxic because it doesn't want to Synchronize. Corviknight might U-turn. Mandibuzz might knock off her Foul Play. I feel like to take advantage of those situations, Weakness Policy is the best item for sure. And what Draining Kiss allows you to do is when you boost your special attack to +2 plus a Weakness Policy, +3, or maybe you got 2 Nasty Plots off and you're at +6, Draining Kiss heals so much HP that you will completely take advantage of those defensive mons completely. Like Mandibuzz is not a counter to my Mew. In fact, Incineroar is not a counter to my Mew. If you Nasty Plot on a switch into an Incineroar, you will actually beat it 1v1 with Draining Kiss, which is insane. It's crazy. And Dragapult may seem like a really good Mew answer as well, but I ran a lot of bulk on my Mew. What I decided to do was keep it slow. I think I'm faster than like Choice Band Adamant Dracovish. And I'm faster than like Jolly Bisharp, so I'm not that fast. I'm not faster than Hydreigon or anything, but you can tank a Scarf Dark Pulse. You can tank a Specs Timid Shadow Ball from Dragapult, OHKO back with Draining Kiss, and he'll heal a lot of health back. And when you have a lot of bulk investment, Modest also allows you to OHKO Aegislash with +3 Flamethrower always, which is really, really great. And it makes Mew a very dangerous threat. And looking at this team matchup, I think Mew is fantastic versus Mincemeat. Even though he has Aegislash, Mandibuzz, and Dragapult, I'm thinking that Mew will at least get 1 kill, and if I position it right, it can go ham and completely destroy Mincemeat's team. I'm also thinking Obstagoon is really, really good versus Mincemeat. Now, you also probably think, I think it's a common opinion that Obstagoon is bad, and I actually thought this myself for quite a long time. But the thing is that Obstagoon actually there's 2 properties three that I think make Obstagoon really, really good. One is its typing. I think Ghosts are so good in this metagame, and I know Mincemeat especially loves Ghosts. I always see him using Gengar, Aegislash, Dragapult, and Obstagoon is fantastic versus Ghost. It's got good bulk, so it can kind of deal with Gengar. Dragapult, it can easily deal with choice versions when you can pivot around it, and if you can pivot around it, Spell Tag sets are tougher because U-turn does chunk away, but the other thing is that Obstagoon is really fast and strong, so it hits really, really hard. It can almost OHKO Clefable, definitely going to OHKO Aegislash, easily to a KOing most of the metagame. I think, maybe Hippowdon and Ferrothorn and maybe Max Defense Corviknight are the only things that won't be. And then Bulk Up plus Switcheroo is fantastic. When you Switcheroo a Flame Orb for leftovers, it increases Obstagoon's longevity so much, and I feel like that makes a huge difference when compared to mons like Conkeldurr, where you're constantly on a timer, and if you're facing something like Hippo, Sand, Helmet, Flame Orb, you're just going to get knocked down, even if you manage to break through that Hippo with CC twice, right? And with the Switcheroo and getting leftovers, it massively increases your bulk, and with bulk up you can even set up in the face of things like body press Corviknight, which is crazy. Oh my god, I need to keep moving my mouse. I'm so sorry. So I feel like Obstagoon is actually really, really fantastic, and I think it works really well on this team. Actually, when I built Mew, I was thinking I'd really hate using Teleport Clef, but I felt like Teleport Clef just worked really, really well with Mew because it was too easy to just teleport a Wish to Mew after breaking some early stuff Mons and just completely sweeping a team. And it was just really, really consistent. And as I kind of filled in the team, Seismitoad, Corviknight, Dragapult, like I thought back to a team that I saw Insult using. I played Insult in the semifinals, and in the quarters he used this team with Reuniclus over Mew, and I thought it was a really good team. And the team was kind of shaping around to be similar. I was looking at, how do I handle ghosts better, and Obstagoon just became a really great fit. So I think I've rambled on quite a bit about my team, so I'm going to get into the game now. So I'm going to lead with Mew. I want to lead with Mew because I was kind of thinking, if he leads Seismitoad, fantastic, I can get off to a good start. And if he leads something like Dragapult or Aegislash, I can pivot around to kind of scout out what the sets are, and it's not the end of the world. So he leads Dragapult. I'm going to go to Clefable, very safe, and his U-turn does 21%. So I know that's a Choice Band Dragapult. And Choice Band Dragapult, it's... honestly, I consider it a bad situation. So the fact that it's choiced is good. It's kind of weird. So non-choice Dragapult is actually the easiest for Mew to deal with because the spell tag Hex does like about 60, 70. U-turn does about like 20, 30. It does about 30, and it's very easy to heal off with Draining Kiss. Even if they switch into a resist, you'll heal half of it off and you'll stay out of range of Hex. And it allows Mew to completely steamroll teams. If he was Hex Dragapult, I think Mew might just straight up 6-0 him. Whereas, Choice Specs is a little bit tougher because I have to keep myself very, very healthy to live a Choice Specs Shadow Ball. So in most cases, Mew will not be able to sweep. But because I have special defensive Clefable with Protect, I have Obstagoon, it means it's really, really easy for my Obstagoon to go really crazy versus his team. So those are all good, but Choice Band is actually really bad because it means his U-turns do a lot of damage, and I just can't keep up with the U-turn Assault, which has, I need to be able to KO the Dragapult, and if it keeps U-turning out and still checking my Mons, it's very, very difficult for me to deal with. So that's not good. I'm going to go to Corviknight to scout the Aegislash set. I don't know if it's Specs or Band, it's kind of hard to tell, and he reveals Choice Specs Flash Cannon here. So I decide, I don't really need to heal this too much. My Corviknight is not that useful. I think it's max defense, so I'm not really going to be using it for anything versus his team. I mean, it's fantastic versus Dragapult, don't get me wrong. It hard walls Dragapult, but I also have Clefable, and I think I can still beat Dragapult at 74%. I don't need to be at max health to deal with Dragapult. So I'm just going to U-turn, he goes to Seismitoad, and I'm going to get in my Mew. I could have gone Obstagoon there, but I wanted to keep it healthy. I didn't want to have to eat an Earth Power, although I would get a KO. I don't want to have to eat an Earth Power. I didn't want to go Dragapult because I wanted to keep my spell tag. I didn't want to get knocked off, because if I can take out that Mandibuzz with Mew, then spell tag Dragapult is fantastic, and it's also my soft check to Zeraora, apart from Seismitoad, so I don't want to lose that. So I go Mew. I go straight for the Nasty Plot. I don't know how he's going to choose to respond to this, right? I think he could Knock Off. I think he could go Aegislash. I think he could go Mandibuzz. All of them are very fair plays. He makes the play that's worst for me, going straight to Dragapult, which is a really good play by him. And I kind of just have to stay in. I don't really have a reason to keep switching out. I'm not going to make any progress doing that. He's going to go for a U-turn. Banded does 73%. Procs my weakness policy. I know that if he uses U-turn and goes to Aegislash, I know I'm going to heal enough, now that I know he's Choice Specs, that I'll be outside of range of Shadow Sneak, so I can safely go for a Draining Kiss. You see I heal back about 14%, which is actually pretty good. Keeps me out of range. Obviously, if this was not a Choice Band Dragapult and it did only 30 with the U-turn, or 35, I would be at 80%, which is going to be amazing. But now here I can just go Flamethrower, take the kill on Aegislash, which is really good because now that threat is out of the way, which is tough for me to switch into, so now Clefable is looking fantastic versus his team. Zeraora looks like the biggest threat, and it looks like Clefable plus Obstagoon can just completely beat his team as long as I can handle Zeraora. So I want to save my Mew. My Mew can still get a kill every time it gets wished up to full. or force him to use Phantom Force, which gives my Obstagoon a free switch. So I decided to go Clefable. I felt like Corviknight gives him Seismitoad too freely and Zeraora too freely. Because here, okay, Zeraora is very scary. And forget the fact that he just Calm-Minded, right? I don't know what set he is. Zeraora could be mixed with Grass Knot, which is the worst case, I think, for me, where Seismitoad can't really handle it, and Clefable can get some chip on it, but it doesn't really handle it. My Mew is weakened. That's one advantage of having Reuniclus on that slot, is that Reuniclus is actually really good at dealing with Zeraora because it's so bulky, and you can get a strong hit off even if you die to knockoff plus Plasma Fist. My Mew is weakened, and my Dragapult can, take a knockoff and hit it back, but it can't consistently keep switching in. Eventually I'm going to be in range of knockoff, and then I'm in a bad spot. And Seismitoad can tank one Grass Knot, but to go hard Seismitoad here I felt like was a little bit risky. So I decided to go for Wish. I felt like Wish was the best mid-ground for me to see what he's going to do. If he Plasma Fists, great. I'm just gonna protect. And if he bulks up, then it means he doesn't have Grass Knot. So my Seismitoad is really, really safe. And if he just Plasma Fists again, okay, I've scouted out his set. He's probably 4 attacks, and with the leftovers and the Wish, I heal up pretty much the same damage that he did. So now I can respond accordingly now that I know he's not bulk up, and he's probably mixed. He actually goes for Calm Mind, and I was definitely not expecting Calm Mind Zeraora. I had it on my radar because I'd seen Akola use it, and I knew it was actually a really big threat. I felt it was quite good versus the teams I'd been bringing, but it was definitely, a very uncommon set, not something I expected to see. So now that he's used Calm Mind, I know he's going to go for a second Calm Mind this turn, so I'm going to teleport into my Mew. I think it's pretty much my only play at this point. So what this does is I have modest Psyshock. So this Psyshock will do about 60%, I think about 55-60%, somewhere in that range. And that allows me to revenge it with Dragapult. I think my Dragapult will be able to revenge it. T-Bolt at +2 is a roll to a KO. I don't know what item he is yet, but I have that. I can also try to just, Clefable can tank a hit. So worst case, Dragapult can dish a hit and then Clefable can finish him off. So as long as I get that Psyshock off, I don't think this thing will completely roll through me, but he gets a crit. And once he got that crit, I kind of just looked at the game and thought, I'm going to lose, because without that damage on Zeraora, it's just, there's no way for me to take this out, right? Like, yeah, this doesn't have coverage for Dragapult, but you'll see this T-Bolt does 49. I think the roll is 47 to 53. So it's definitely a roll to a KO, and I could, get off a hit here. But I decided to go for the Wisp. At least this puts some chip on the Dragapult, on the Zeraora, and it makes Hex do a lot more damage with modest spell tag. And, if I live, I can get it down to about 50%. But because I did not get that Psyshock, that hit is not going to KO him. And that puts me in a really tough spot. Psyshock would have also let me see his item and plan around that accordingly. And it's just like, there's no play for me. I needed to get that Psyshock off on the Zeraora, because that damage was just way too important. And if I got that, here, so I go to Seismitoad to pivot. I want to see what he has. If he's leftovers, like, just click X. There's nothing I can do. But he's not actually leftovers. I'm thinking he's probably, he used T-Bolt twice, so I know he's not Metronome. I know he's not Magnet, because based on the roll in the Dragapult. So I'm thinking he's something like Shukaberry, or, maybe Expert Belt. Maybe Expert Belt so he can get Okos with Grass Knot. And so I'm just going to start trying to pivot. It's really the only play I can do. I think here, going Toad is, back to Toad a little bit too obvious. I think I should have just U-turned here, get the chip. I was thinking, like, okay, I want to keep, my game plan is that, if I can beat the Zeraora, and I can keep Clefable, Obstagoon, and Corviknight, I think I win. I just straight up think I just win right there, because his Seismitoad can't beat my Clef. His Clef is not beating my Clef. His Mandibuzz is not beating my Clef. And his Dragapult can't beat my Clef because I can protect, and if he goes for Phantom Force, that's a free Obstagoon switch. And Corviknight also hard counters the Dragapult, so he can't try to catch my Clef with a Choice Banded Steel Wing. and Corviknight also, stops his Clefable, and it can allow me to U-turn, go for a slow U-turn into Obstagoon to chip it into range for a Facade. So I think with those 3 Mons and Zeraora gone, I just win. So I was thinking, I want to save my Corviknight if I manage to get past the Zeraora, but he goes for another Calm Mind, predicts it. That's really bad because now his T-Bolt for sure KOs my Dragapult, so I don't even have that as an option now to try to go for the roll. I think he's going to predict Toad here again in Aura Sphere, so I stay in. He actually just goes for a Focus Blast, and Focus Blast is interesting. I think it's for the damage versus Ferrothorn because Aura Sphere is a bit weak. Risks the miss, but he hits, so there you go. I'm done. This game is over. There's really nothing more to say. I try to predict an over-prediction. I think if he over-predicts, that's my only chance of winning. I don't think Protect Stalling will really work. Maybe it would have. Maybe if I do it enough times and, play it exactly right, I can win. I tried to teleport to Dragapult there, actually, so that I could go for a much stronger Hex, because Moonblast would just do 20. Hex would do, almost 50. So I wanted to... Actually, he has +3, so it would do, around 35, 37. But it would do more damage than the Moonblast, so that's what I was thinking. Maybe Moonblast was better because then I can protect Wish Stall a little bit more. But yeah, this is game over. He just completely sweeps me. So this game, you're in the finals, and the finals are intense. They're important. And I thought, honestly, the situation was looking quite good for me after the Aegislash got knocked out. And to just suddenly have the game completely spiral out of control by one setup sweeper, it felt like there was nothing I could do to stop it, with the crit. And even without the crit, of course, it's still a difficult position for me. I'm not trying to say that the crit completely stole the game from me. I think there was still good chances for either play it or win, but the crit completely stole any opportunity for me to come back. And I felt like I had an advantage once I dealt with the Zeraora. So, to go down in that situation, really, it's a difficult spot mentally. So, when this happened, I'm a little bit shook. Because I'm wondering, is this series just going to end in 2 games? He brought some unique sets in Physical Dragapult and Calm Mind Zeraora. Is he going to bring some other set that just happens to completely 6-0 me, get a little bit of luck, and the game just completely spirals out of control? So I took a moment after this game. I think looking over the game, I think I played it well. The first 2 turns, maybe if I led a little bit stronger, I would be slightly more ahead there, but I don't think it made a difference. That level of chip was very minor and allowed me to scout information about his sets. So I think apart from that, I think I did everything I had to do to win in the late game. Maybe I could have gotten a prediction or 2 right and possibly gotten past the Zeraora, but I'm in a deep hole. And it's really hard to come back. So I took a moment here to just, pause, rest, relax, and, ready my mind for Game 2. So going into Game 2, I'm going to be bringing a pretty different team from what I've been using. I don't think I've used a single Como in OST up to this point. And I have Jirachi. The Jirachi set is actually really interesting. So when I first started making this team, I was really interested in Calm Mind Jirachi. So Jirachi is one of those mons, kind of like Mew, where it has good base stats and it's really versatile. It has good typing. Steel is really useful. And Calm Mind is one of those sets that I think is really underexplored. We've seen, Trick, Scarf, Wish, I think is really good. I think the sub set with sub pup, whatever it is, sub power up punch, Zen Ironhead, I think that's really annoying. Maybe Fire Punch instead for Ferrothorn if you want. I think that set is really annoying and it's quite potent. But the thing is, I really wanted something that could pressure Hippowdon, Ferrothorn, Rotom teams, and kind of force them to play awkwardly around it in a way that would allow me to get a big hit on a big annoying mon like Ferrothorn or Rotom Heat, and that would allow the rest of my team to function well versus that type of sand. So I was really interested in that Jirachi. And a long time back, when I first started playing SS in the Doug Trio meta, I had made a kind of similar team. So there was like one time where I was really interested in Jirachi, and I used a very interesting set. It was Trick Toxic Orb. So the idea behind the Trick Toxic Orb in that time was, it was multifaceted. So one was that, like, it's kind of weird, why not just use Trick Choice Scarf? But with having the Toxic Orb, it allows me to switch up my moves, and this makes a trick easier to get off, not just because it's, just unexpected. It's way more unexpected once you've seen the Jirachi switch moves, but it also is just, you can switch moves, so you can easily just safely Iron Head into a Toxapex switch and then immediately trick right after, and they don't see it coming. And the idea was, if you trick away the Toxapex Shed Shell, at that time I felt like, Shed Shell Toxapex was best because of Dugtrio. But, you trick away the Shed Shell, then Dugtrio can trap the Toxapex, and Calm Mind Clefable is just a massive threat. But the other thing that Toxic Orb did, which is really interesting, was that you can trick Rotom Heat, and if you trick Rotom Heat, then you can remove their heavy-duty boots. You also put them on a permanent timer, and again, it makes Clefable very, very strong. At that time, Pain Split Rotom Heat was the set. I don't think Toxic was released, but Pain Split Rotom Heat was still quite common then. I think it still is, of course, quite common. And putting that on that permanent timer means it allows you to win that 1v1 or just chip it down really, really fast. And it allowed you to beat Corviknight and take lefties and do a lot of weird, interesting things. And when I made that team, at the time I was like, I kind of wanted to stray away from Mandibuzz. When you put on Jirachi in the team, I start with Jirachi, I'm immediately thinking, okay, Ghost types again, amazing. Aegislash, Dragapult. How do I want to deal with these mons? But I kind of don't like Mandibuzz, and Mandibuzz, I think it fits quite well with Jirachi, but I'm a special set too. I don't even have Iron Head, so I feel like Jirachi, on paper, it'll look like a good Clefable counter, and maybe, versus Wish Teleport, definitely. It can take advantage of Wish Teleport, but it's not going to really be stopping Calm Mind Clefable. So I kind of just, I don't love Mandibuzz. I feel like it's a great mon. I've used it a lot, especially in the early rounds. I spammed a team that had Mandibuzz, but later on in the meta, I just wasn't loving it so much, and I kind of wanted to stay away from Mandibuzz. So in comes Como. So this Como set is really interesting, and I used a very similar set on that team as well, where I also used Como with Jirachi. So the idea behind Como here is that, I get a good check to physical Aegislash. That can also spawn Shadow Balls. It can discourage just clicking Shadow Balls. So it's a bit of a soft Ghost check. Definitely not a hard Ghost check at all. And I definitely still consider this team to be a bit Ghost weak. But it definitely can, put a stop. Provide some defensive value versus that. And I'll go a little bit more into the set later, or actually, I'll explain Rocky Helmet at least. So a lot of Comos run Leftovers. I wanted to run Rocky Helmet because of Aegislash, mainly. Getting the chip on Aegislash, clicking Shadow Claw, or SDing and clicking, like, +2 Iron Head, it's huge. The Rocky Helmet chip is just so much for the team, and it was kind of just a situational call on this team where getting that chip was really useful. But I do think Rocky Helmet Como is really, really good and has a place to become a standard option on defensive Como. And I'll go a little bit more into the set details as we go through the game. Now, for the rest of the team, I wanted Clefable, obviously. I wanted to go for a max timid Calm Mind Clefable because a lot of people use Aegislash versus me. I like being able to outrun or at least speed tie with the Aegislash. Sorry for the screensaver. I liked being able to outrun or at least speed tie with Aegislash, and, +1 Life Orb Flamethrower almost knocks it out. A lot of times your Life Orb will get knocked out, but if you get +2, you can usually knock it out. You can get Chip, once again, with Helmet Como. You can get the Chip on Aegislash so that Clefable can knock it out with the Flamethrower. So that was really good. I wanted some speed, so, I put Zeraora. I mean, I had Corviknight too, so I had Corviknight, some defensive check. Originally, I was going to go Defog, but you'll see I changed to Bulk Up, and I'll explain that in a bit. I had Zeraora because, I needed some speed, an Electrommune, another soft check to opposing Zeraora. Apart from Como, Zeraora not running Play Rough that often these days, but, it's a thing. It can exist. And my own Zeraora can at least be a soft check to that. And Salazzle. So Salazzle is a mon I think people seem to think I love. I mean, obviously I do like it. I think it's quite good. mainly because it just takes advantage of Clefable Corviknight so well. It's really fantastic, and then also that it's a really great team player. It provides a good speed, ability to check things, ability to pressure, teleport Clefable. I think having things that can pressure a Clefable from freely wishing and teleporting is really good. If you go Salazzle on a wish and they try to teleport it, then they're taking a big hit. Or if they try to switch and they get hit with a Toxic, now they're on a timer and that wish teleport is not so useful anyway. So it's really good. And the other thing about Salazzle is, Corrosion Toxic is so good. And when you can Toxic things like Toxapex, you enable things like Bulk Up Corviknight. So I was really interested in Bulk Up Corviknight, so I tried it. I think I'm running like Speed for Adamant Conch, Max Special Defense, and Sub. Avoid status, avoid knockoff from like Seismitoad, Toxapex, Scald knockoff, get a free sub on Clefable for the next Mon, and this is a matchup, versus Aegislash too, like he has there, where if you sub, then you can force him to switch to their Blade form to get a hit on you, and that makes the matchup a lot better too. So that, I think, is really, really cool synergy. Salazzle also tends to draw in Rotom Heat for a lot of teams that are weak to Salazzle, and if you Toxic Rotom Heat, then sub Bulk Up Corviknight can definitely just run through the game. Again, if you get the Toxic on Rotom Heat, it helps Clefable, it helps Jirachi too. Jirachi can often lure in Rotom Heat to stop it and get off a big +1 Psychic, and that can position Corviknight to win the late game. It can help Zeraora to win the late game. Salazzle not getting Toxic on Hippo can help Grass Knot Zeraora do well versus Sand. So I think there's a lot of really cool offensive synergy with the team. And one final thing I want to say about Jirachi set. So I experimented a lot with, what should the Jirachi run? Sorry, it was just muting my volume. What should my Jirachi run as coverage? I was looking at Grass Knot, I was looking at Steel Beam, actually. I was looking at T-Bolt, Aura Sphere. And, even with the Como, I felt like, the Ghost weakness is too big. I felt like I needed to have something to hit Aegislash with Jirachi. And Shadow Ball was a really, really good option. With the Rocky Helmet chip, you can KO with a +1 Shadow Ball. And, it kind of only hits Aegislash, but it has a 40% chance to drop Spadef, so it can kind of break through Ferrothorn as well. But as I was testing more, I was playing with Steel Beam. And, the reason I have Citrus Berry, if you've already seen that I have Citrus Berry, is because it allows you to live a Shadow Claw plus Shadow Sneak from Swords Dance Aegislash. Obviously a choice band will OHKO, but it allows you to beat the Swords Dance 1 variant 1v1. Originally I started with like Leftovers, but I felt like Citrus plus that Aegislash scenario had a lot of utility. And the other thing was like versus Rotom Heat, if I go for a Calm Mind and they Nasty Plot, I can Calm Mind again, live the +2 Overheat, get the Citrus Berry back, and actually live another Overheat after. So that was another scenario where having the Citrus and the immediate health, the immediate 25%, was way better than having the passive Leftovers recovery, because I also played Jirachi very offensively. And I think last coverage move I was running Aura Sphere. I was playing with Steel Beam. Steel Beam can do cute things, like you Steel Beam, you get knocked down to 50, Citrus Berry procs, and you're at 75. It's a really strong nuke move that hits the grounds, it hits the darks, like Amandabuzz and Hydra, but I found Ferrothorn was just too annoying, and Aura Sphere just made my matchup versus Sand fantastic. Hippowdon can't afford to stay in on Jirachi anyway. +1 Psych just completely hits it so hard that Hippowdon really has no business staying in when I have a Zeraora and a Salazzle, and those are such big threats to Sand. So I felt like I didn't need Grass Knot or Steel Beam or anything like that, and Aura Sphere lets me hit to a KO Ferrothorn and hit the darks. So yeah, I lead Clefable. Clefable looks fantastic versus his team. He's got Surfetch Dracovish, so I know that's a teleport Clef. I'm not sure. I think it's Band Fish and Scarf Hydra, and I'm not sure about what the Aegislash set is, but SD I think is most likely in my opinion, and I think probably the most dangerous to my team as well. But either way, I know Clefable is fantastic versus him. I know Vish is a little bit dangerous, but I feel like he's probably going to lead Toad. And just because Toad is very difficult for my team to take advantage of, you see Clef is the main thing. So he leads Toad. I go for a Moonblast, and it does 61%. I am a life for Clefable, but I'm not even modest. So I know that this Toad is a very offensive Toad, and it goes for Earthquake, actually. So I'm thinking this might even be a Power Whip Toad. I think that makes a lot of sense because he's got Dracovish, and removing opposing Toad is really, really good. So I'm thinking he's a max attack, power whip, Seismitoad. I think that's probably what he is, 3 attacks and power whip. So I go for a Moonblast, he goes for Earthquake, I soft boiled up on the switch, and this is fantastic. I just got off a massive hit on the Seismitoad, which is a big threat. Now it's in range of Grass Knot. It's kind of hard to deal with for Salazzle. And he goes to Clef, so I think he's, he might wish Teleport. He might want to try to heal that Seismitoad off, so I want to punish that. So I go to my Jirachi. I could have gone Salazzle, but I feel like, then he goes Toad, I just Toxic, and then he's back, right? There's no point. So Jirachi is much better. I can call Mind if he chooses to Wish and then Teleport, and then he can't really afford to go Seismitoad, because then he's going to be taking a big hit right after. So he just hard teleports into Dracovish, good play. I'm going to go into my Como and see what he is. So my Como set, so, this team is definitely Dracovish weak. I don't have a Seismitoad. I don't have an Immune. And Dracovish is one of those stupid centralizing mons where if you don't have something like that, it's a little bit difficult to deal with. But what I do have is, the Rocky Helmet chip is, of course, fantastic. Because I need to put this thing in range of Zeraora to be able to deal with it with Zeraora, because Zeraora outruns even Jolly Scarf. And the other thing is that, okay, if he's Scarf, which he is, based on that Vicious Rend damage, then he can't 2 KO me. If he's Banded, Banded usually runs Adamant. I think I'm faster than I'm Jolly Bisharp and Adamant Dracovish with this Como, and I'm running Draco Meteor. So the Draco Meteor allows me to outrun the Choice Band Dracovish and nuke it. They click Vicious Rend, they see it's a 2-hit KO. Oh, I'm just gonna click it again. No, Draco Meteor just straight up knocks it out, and the fish is gone. So that's one of the techs I have. Draco Meteor also was what I ran on that other team with Toxic Orb Jirachi, so it allows me to hit Rotom Heat and Dragapult in one slot, and it allows me to run Flamethrower, so I can hit Balloon Aegislash, because SD Balloon Aegislash is quite threatening. And Body Press, of course, is not limited because it's based on defense. So I think it's a really, really good Como set. This is pretty much the only set I've been running whenever I run Como. I don't run Como that often. Taunt is good, but I really like Draco Meteor and Flamethrower. So he goes for Vicious Rend. I actually think that's Adamant Choice Scarf. You'll see later on, he clicks Vicious Rend about twice where there's a damage roll, and both times he's rolling about max damage on a Jolly Choice Scarf. So I think it's more likely that it's an Adamant Choice Scarf Dracovish. So I'm just going to go for Rocks. He's going to switch, and Rocks are really good for get chip on the Dracovish and the Hydreigon. And he goes Toad, and based on the damage I did with Clef with Moonblast, the Draco's going to kill. So I decided, hey, if it doesn't even kill, he's going to go for Rocks. And I definitely want to keep this Como healthy, mostly because I'm really scared of that Aegislash, and also because it checks Dracovish, so it's really important. I think he may not even gone for Rocks there. I think EQ was a very fair play for him to make there, but Draco does nab the KO quite easily, I think, so that's really good. He goes Surf-Fetched. Surf-Fetched is a little bit tricky. I don't really want to go Clef, because he might predict it and Poison Jab, and CC will still do a ton anyway. I am faster, because I'm timid, but it's, I want to keep my Clef healthy. It's also my check to Hydreigon apart from Corviknight. And I don't want to go Salazzle. Salazzle can live a +2 Shadow Sneak from Aegislash and get off a Toxic or a Flamethrower, so I definitely want to keep that really healthy. You can also pressure the Teleport Clefable. If the Hydreigon's not Scarfed, then once I remove the Vish, the Salazzle can just straight up 6-0. So I definitely want to keep Salazzle, and Close Combat is a roll to KO, so it's not really good. But because I have some bulk on my Jirachi for that Aegislash Shadow Claw plus Shadow Sneak, I'm going to go to my Jirachi, and it's going to live the CC no matter what. So I tank that, the Citrus Berry procs, his defenses are dropped, and he's locked into CC. That confirms he's Choice Banned and not something weird like SD. So now that I know that, I'm going to predict him to go Aegislash. Not because I think he'll go Aegislash. I think he would if he's like a choice set or something like that, but letting an Aegislash in for free has just too much downside. Whereas Shadow Ball, it still gets some chip on the Hydra, still gets some chip on the Dracovish, so it's overall a good move for me to go for, and he does indeed go Vish. I kind of don't agree with going Dracovish here. I feel like the health on it was really, really important, because now it's in range of Plasma Fist, but now that he did that, it's really good for me. So I'm going to go sack my Jirachi and go to my Zero Aura, because now he's in range of Plasma Fist, and it's a very free for me to click Plasma Fist, as he goes to Surf Fetched. Okay, this is going to be a really big turn, where he can go for First Impression, and First Impression will do quite a lot to Zero Aura. It won't knock me out, but the main thing is that, I'm going to be in range of a Choice Scarf Hydreigon or a Shadow Sneak Aegislash. I don't think he's Scarf at this point, because he's shown Choice Scarf Dracovish, although because I think it's Adamant, it's not that fast. So I still think it could be Scarf Hydreigon. But the thing is, just switching out is just not good for me. I feel like even if he First Impressions and I catch it, I feel like it's not that fantastic of a situation. And if he CCs on predicting that, it's really good. I don't want to go Clefable. I don't want to take a CC with my Corviknight, because I think my Corviknight can sweep him. I definitely don't want to lose my Salazzle. I felt like there was just too much downside, and I know if I click Plasma Fizz, I'm getting a kill. I'll take a big hit, but I can deal with that down the road. It puts me in range of Moonblast. It's not the greatest situation, but I just felt like he was in the back seat. He had to make a play, and I felt like CC on a switch had too much downside for me. So I call him on clicking CC and go for the Plasma Fist, and he does click CC, so I knock him out, and that's a really good KO for me. Now, one thing I just realized I kind of neglected to do is talk about my overall game plan, how I see myself winning this game. So I just want to mention that real quick. So obviously Zero Aura is looking fantastic versus him. I got the Seismitoad down. I had Grass Knot. I wasn't on Bulk Up actually. So I have the Seismitoad down. I have the Surfetch down. His Dracovish is in range of Plasma Fist. His Hydreigon lives a CC after taking rocks. It's a roll, but one more round of rocks, which he can't get rid of, and it's in range of close combat. Aegislash can't 1v1 Zero Aura, Clefable can't 1v1 Zero Aura, but of course once I take a hit, I can't 1v1 everything. The other Mon that I felt like had a really good chance of taking this game right from the get-go, I felt like Bulk Up Corviknight could just straight up sweep him. If I sub on the Seismitoad or Clefable and just start grabbing some Bulk Ups, or just, playing Bulk Up on the Clefable, or playing Bulk Up on the Toad once you've seen it's physical, I think Corviknight can just run away with the game. He can beat the Dracovish then once it got some boost. He can beat the Surfetched. He can definitely beat the Hydreigon. The main thing I was concerned about was Aegislash, and I wanted to, if it was possible, I wanted to use Jirachi to force in the Aegislash, get a Shadow Ball, and allow my Corviknight to win. But I was also just afraid of, he can Vicious Rend into CC with Surfetch, and that might take me out if both do about 50. So I felt like, early game, I definitely don't want to be trying to go for Corviknight. But right now, Corviknight looks really good. So and he goes to Hydreigon. I don't want to go Clefable because I don't want him to U-turn into Dracovish. So I decided to go to Corviknight. I feel like it's a really good, it'll easily beat Scarf Hydreigon. If he's Nasty Plot, then I can live a +2 Flamethrower, get some Brave Bird chip on him, and then Zero Aura can easily knock the Hydreigon out. Whereas if I go Clefable, it's a little bit more dicey if he has Flash Cannon or if he U-turns Dracovish. So he Dracoed really good, and that makes me think that it's a double choice Scarf, because that was definitely not boosted damage output. So now I have two options, and I think because my time is a little bit low. I'm at 60 seconds right now, and my timer is a little bit low because I spent a lot of time thinking about that Zero or a Surfetch situation, and I did not test Corviknight versus Aegislash. Right now, I feel like I have a really good chance of winning, and the biggest threat to me is an SD Aegislash. I'm keeping Como because Como is outside of range of a +4 Adamant Shadow Sneak. Salazzle can live a +2 Sneak and Flamethrower Toxic. Flamethrower won't OHKO, but it'll take him really low into Rocky Helmet range. Clefable can outspeed or speed tie and go for a nice Life Orb Flamethrower and get a lot of damage on it. So, Aegislash, I think I have it covered, but if he crits me, if he gets +4, which I think he can almost guarantee by setting up on a weakened Zero Aura, if he gets +4 and then crits my Como, it's a little bit dicey. But, if that's what I take it down to, that's still a 23 out of 24 chance of winning. So my main thing is, I want to avoid giving him +6. I think if I allow him to get +4, I am okay with it. I'm okay with the situation that allows him to get +4, but I don't think I can really avoid it even. But if he gets +6, I'm in danger of losing. And my thought process was, okay, I can try to go in with Corviknight here. I can bulk up. He's probably going to go Aegislash or Clefable. If I bulk up, then if he goes Clefable, I can get 2 bulk ups. His Dracovish comes in, does about 50. Now that I've gotten 2 bulk ups, I can KO him and be around like 30%, maybe a little bit less. And then I can probably live a hit from whatever comes out. Maybe if Hydreigon comes out and Dark Pulses, maybe it'll KO. I'm a little bit unsure. Maybe I'll live. Either way, that gives me a free turn and a lot of good situations. So I can definitely go for a bulk up. What I was worried about is, how is the matchup versus Aegislash? I didn't want Aegislash to just set up with +6 Shadow Claw on my Corviknight and then crit a Shadow Claw. And if that happened, I felt like that would be disastrous, and I wasn't sure, I don't know if I think SD Scope Lens is even a set. So, that's something I was really concerned about, critting Shadow Claw. Critting Shadow Sneak a little bit less likely. Especially because of the high crit rate too. So I didn't want to go in with Corviknight, and I also felt like maybe he might just go Aegislash here. So I'm just gonna Brave Bird, get some chip. He does go Clef, so I'm just gonna Brave Bird again. If he hard teleports, then he's gonna be really low in range of my Plasma Fist. If he wishes, now I can bulk up, and that forces him. He has to protect, so I can get a free bulk up right here. Here, I could do, I could bulk up again. I could go for sub for the Dracovish, but I feel like, I can just Brave Bird and keep the Clef low, keep it in range of Zeraora, so that, because I know Zeraora is probably going to have to take a hit to CC that Hydreigon. I expect that to happen. And I know that this is a roll to kill. He does KO me, which at this point I'm pretty sure he's Adamant Choice Scarf, because that was a max roll for Jolly Choice Scarf to KO me. So I'm pretty sure he's Adamant. So it's maybe a 50-50 chance of KOing. It's not the end of the world. I just go Zeraora, Plasma Fist, grab my kill. He has to go Hydreigon. I am not naive on this, actually. I was earlier, but I changed into Hasty at the later stages of testing this team. So I lived that Draco Meteor for sure. Go for close combat, knock it out. And he's going to go Aegislash. I could attack here. But what I'm afraid of is that if I attack, he Shadow Sneaks, and then I try to go for a fire move and he goes hard Dracovish and lives it, and then now I have to take damage on my Como to beat the Dracovish. I mean, if he Shadow Sneaks, I have to take damage on my Como to beat the Dracovish, no matter what. And I was afraid that it'll somehow allow the Aegislash to spiral out of control. I just want to keep my Zeraora. My timer is low. I go to the first play that I know will be fine, which is I can go to Clefable. I think he'll SD, and he does indeed SD. But I can just go for Flamethrower. If he's Jolly and Ironheads me, perfect. He's in shield form. I can just go Salazzle, live a +2 sneak, Flamethrower, done. GG. I can even go to Como and Flamethrower, and the Rocky Helmet will allow me to take him out. But if he... And the reason I didn't hard Salazzle, if he hard Shadow Sneaks and it somehow puts me in a bad spot, but hard Salazzle would have been fine here too. And I know that if he SDs another time, then I have a chance to live +4 Shadow Sneak, but more importantly, the Como will live +4 Shadow Sneak. So I know that scenario is going to win almost all the time for me. So Clefable is really, really safe. He goes for the Iron Head. I knock him out with the Flamethrower, and yeah, Como takes the game. So that was a pretty clean game 2. I'm feeling a lot more confident going into game 3 that I can take the series. I felt like I outplayed him for the vast majority of that game. I don't really think there was any scenario where, he got the SD on the Switch, but I made my play assuming that he would SD on the Switch. There was no point where he was making an advantage over me by making some play or prediction or making some smart move. I felt like I was always, despite having I think a little bit worse of a matchup because of the Dracovish, honestly I think it was even. I think my Corviknight was really good. And oh yeah, I didn't explain this, but had I gone for the bulk up and he tried to beat me with Aegislash, I calced it after the game that +3 bulk up, +3 Brave Bird on a Blade form Aegislash does OHKO after rocks, and so I can definitely boost to +3, use Substitute to force him to Blade form, and then GG. You know, I can KO the Aegis. That would have worked, and I think it would have been a little bit safer. Maybe I over-optimized a little bit the endgame to try to avoid losing to crits. I also risked a Draco Meteor crit, but, you know, I think at some point you have to risk crits. It's very, very difficult to win a Pokemon game so completely that not even critical hits and stuff can beat you. So I had a really good chance of closing that out, and I did. So that's really good, and we're gonna go on to Game 3. Alright guys, we're back for Game 3, and I just realized this video has gone on quite a long time, so if you guys are still watching, still here, thank you. And yeah, so going into Game 3, so my Game 3 team is based around Togekiss, and you know, the team I mentioned that kind of was sort of a base of inspiration for my team, my Game 2 team, also was a little bit of a base of inspiration for this team. So on that old team, I had used a specially defensive heavy duty boots Togekiss. I think on that team it was a Thunderwave Defog set, and you know, it was not the typical offensive Togekiss you see with like sub lefties, nasty plot, air slash, and then flamethrower T-wave. I think is probably the most common set, and sometimes I've seen, I think in SPL I saw Roost heavy duty boots offensive. This is not that type of set, so like one thing I realized is that Togekiss is actually really specially bulky. Incredibly so. It's bulkier than Clefable, even though I'm not even running max special defense because I've got a lot of speed EVs for like neutral nature Aegis and things like that. So I don't even have max special defense, but I'm actually bulkier than a max specially defensive teleport Clefable. And Togekiss is so bulky, in fact, that it can live a Specs Kyurem Ice Beam, Thunder Wave it, and then Roost stall it to victory, unless you get frozen, of course, but the odds are far in your favor. And that just blew, you know, that just blew my mind. It was like when I was using, I used that set early in OST, and I didn't have a chance to bring it out again. And when I was, you know, thinking for what do I want to use for a potential Game 3, this set kind of came to mind, and I'm thinking, oh god, I think specially defensive Togekiss is really, really good. But I felt like Defog was a little bit wasted on it. I felt like because it's so bulky, it can, you know, beat things that would normally expect to beat it because of they're faster and they can out damage. But this one plays a little bit slower, you know, it won't have spread paralysis. And I was thinking, okay, maybe I want to run Toxic because Rotom Heat is one of the most annoying things for Togekiss to deal with. And on that previous team, I had paired this with a Life Orb physically defensive Clefable, because like when Togekiss paralyzes Corviknight or something, Ironhead Corviknight cannot beat Clefable at all, especially with physically defensive. You just stall until the paralysis comes. They're not even doing over half to you. Flamethrower will easily rip right through the Corviknight once you boost up, and so it's a really good combination. And I'm thinking, oh, if I can run Toxic, I can hit the Rotom Heat, and if it's Pain Split, it won't be able to beat my Calm Mind Clefable anymore. But, and so, you know, I mean, I was not running Defog, and I didn't want to run like Corviknight or Mandibuzz with Togekiss. It didn't make sense. So I immediately thought of running Spin with Drill, and then, you know, the team kind of just came together around it. I put T-Tar to add some speed with Drill and add a Goat Resist and another Breaker, Seismitoad for the water immunity, for, you know, the check to Zeraora, another Elecommune, Rocks, utility, all that stuff. Rotom Heat just for fantastic pivoting, pressuring steals, pressuring flyers, spreading status with Toxic as well. And as I tested the team more and more, I found that, you know, Aegis was a threat. I was looking at Flamethrower on Togekiss as well, but I found that, you know, so often Rotom Heat could just Toxic other Rotom Heat. It was happening almost always that this endgame would kind of occur, where at some point their Rotom Heat would be pressured into like trading Toxics with mine, or they would try to boost and I would be able to Toxic them, and then all of that, it was making that Togekiss kind of had a free move that it could use to help with its other matchups. And I kind of decided to go back to Togekiss's roots. I kind of looked at Nasty Plot, but I really found Substitute was really good, because once I could get one thing is avoiding status and knockoff from things like Seismitoad, Ferrothorn, extremely good. You abuse them really, really hard. And with Rotom Heat's Toxic, you can actually sub on Rotom Heat and just beat it out completely, which was insane to me. And of course you have more fishing with paralysis. You know, Corviknight, maybe you're not going to get through with just Air Slash because of pressure, but once you paralyze it, you don't really need to beat it with Togekiss, you can beat it with Clefable. So sub ended up coming out really good. So yeah, now, looking at the team matchup. Now, I've actually seen mncmt, like the moment this game started, I thought, oh, I've seen mncmt use this team before. I think he used it in CPL. So I knew, I looked up the sets, I looked at the replay, and I found from the replay I could kind of glean some knowledge of the sets. So one thing was that his Primarina specs. That's really, really important to know, because if you look at my team, it is quite weak to a sub Calm Mind Primarina, and it's quite weak to specs Primarina as well. Knowing that it's specs, though, definitely, you know, aids me in knowing how to play around it. I think my focus this game will be if I can knock off the choice specs on Primarina, Togekiss can easily deal with it, easily. Otherwise, if I can land a status on Primarina, then I can also stall it out, either with Toxic or Thunder Wave, but I think landing the knockoff will be easier. His Rhyperior is also a big threat. I know it's Rock's SD, and it's really annoying for Togekiss actually, especially with Rock Blast, and he also has Rotom and Gengar, so it's not the most fantastic matchup for Togekiss, but you'll see what happens. And his Gengar was the most scary thing, so I had seen Shadow Ball on his Gengar and no other information. So from that, I didn't see Life Orb, I didn't see Black Sludge. So I'm thinking, from the damage, it didn't look choice specs either. So I was thinking it was Nasty Plot, and I was just, you know, really wondering, is it Thunderbolt, Energy Ball, Focus Blast? If it's Focus Blast, really bad. Energy Ball, kind of bad, but not that terrible. Thunderbolt, I can deal with, but, you know, because T-Tar can manage that a little bit better, but it's still a bit scary, because if it has Focus Blast, I'm in a really, really bad spot versus Gengar. So one thing I kind of want to do versus Gengar is take a hit with Togekiss to paralyze it, because Togekiss will be so surprisingly bulky, and once it's paralyzed, then I can deal with it. And Hydreigon, Scarf, Rotom, I knew was Volt Switch, and I hadn't seen whether it was Pain Split or Toxic. So yeah, going into the game, I think in this game, because my matchup is really bad, I think Primarina and Rhyperior plus Gengar already gives him a massive advantage over me. I feel like if mncmt plays really well, I think he should win quite a lot of the time. Looking at the leads, I'm thinking I really need to pressure that Rhyperior right away, and I really need to pressure the Primarina right away by getting status or knockoff, things like that. And I was expecting that he would lead with Ferrothorn because it looks so fantastic versus my team. Nothing really immediately looks like it immediately threatens it, and Seismitoad seems like a kind of obvious lead for me because the Rhyperior is so threatening to me. It was a little bit of a mind game, but I predicted the Ferrothorn lead. Decided to lead Rotom Heat. This is fantastic because he can't risk his Ferrothorn this early game, because it's, you know, spikes are really, really good, and he just checks a lot of stuff. So I know he's going to save his Ferrothorn, go to Rhyperior, easy Toxic for me to land. Now, I know he's going to just go for Rocks. This is an opportunity for me to go Toad. Here, he should go back to Ferrothorn, for sure. But I decided to knock off because the knockoff, you know, it still hits Ferrothorn, and it's really useful because that really allows me to pressure the Ferrothorn down and get it weaker. You know, the fact that it's not recovering every time it switches in means that every time Toad can chip it down. You know, if I get a Scald Burn, it's a lot more impactful. The other thing was that if he plays a rushed game and tries to go straight to Primarina on my Rocks, I catch it and it's completely neutralized the threat. And that's exactly what happens. This is probably, these first 3 turns were absolutely fantastic for me. I do not think they could have gone better in any way. Like, honestly, the best turns for me that could have ever happened, and like that, the matchup becomes looking way more playable, because now that his choice specs are gone, you'll see my specially defensive Togekiss completely eats this Moonblast. That's a high roll Moonblast, actually. High roll. And Togekiss completely eats it up. It's, you know, and if that was choice spec, it's an easy to a KO, and I just can't switch into it. Like, nothing really can switch into Moonblast. I have Excadrill and Rotom Heat, but, you know, I can't really switch into a Specs Moonblast, so that was just a fantastic sequence for me. I'm going to go for a Roost because I need to keep this Togekiss healthy. I could have gone for a T-Wave, but I feel like Rhyperior or Rotom Heat's a bit too free. He decides to stay in and fish for a Scald Burn, gets it the first try. I mean, not much I can do about that. A little bit lucky, but I can deal with the fact that he Scald Burned me. I Roost again on the switch out to Rotom Heat. Here I kind of debate, you know, is he going to go for Toxic? Is he going to try to, you know, do something fancy? He just goes for a Nasty Plot. This makes me think he doesn't have Toxic. But just to be safe, I decided to go for a Scald, thinking, okay, even if he switches out, I have a chance to land a Scald Burn, and a Scald Burn is really, really good. And, you know, hitting the Rotom Heat for a 2 KO is fantastic if he chooses to stay in, you know, and get that big damage on me, because my Seismitoad is basically my main check to Rhyperior, so that might be important to him. But he decides to, you know, switch, and I think looking back, I think I should have just gone for Rocks here, because if I don't get the Scald Burn, then the Scald doesn't really make progress, and now I just, you know, lose a little bit of time. So he goes for the knockoff. I know I'm going to have to absorb the knockoff with my Clefable. Like, there's just no other option. I really want to keep lefties on Toad for as long as I can. You know, I think he's definitely Body Press Ferrothorn. He kind of really needs it. But, you know, it's a really big risk if he happens to have Power Whip. And I just want the lefties on Toad. You know, it helps with switching in versus the Rotom. And, you know, it's really fortunate that I did not have to eat a Specs Moonblast from Primarina in order to knock it off, so I might as well take advantage of the fact that my Toad is very healthy and can still check, you know, Gengar if it's not Energy Ball, Rotom Heat, Rhyperior. So I'm going to go Clefable, and I know that the Flamethrower will scare him out, but I'm just going to play a very safe Calm Mind. This is, you know, just in case he stays in. The Calm Mind will force a switch and let me get a big hit on the switch for some good damage versus Gengar or Rotom. The other thing is that I know if he goes hard into Rotom, he's kind of pushed to Nasty Plot, so I can recreate the same situation again. I'd already realized after using Scald that I should have gone for Rocks, so now I'm going to go for the Rocks this time as he switches out, this time to Primarina, so it's actually quite good that he doesn't go to Ferrothorn, because this means he can't lay up his Spikes, and I can just, you know, go back to Togekiss, force him once again into Rhyperior or Rotom Heat, and he's choosing not to go to Rhyperior. You see that. That Hydro Pump does 39, because the Moonblast is actually a max roll with 35, or really close to a high roll. And he's choosing to go Rotom, understandable. I think Rhyperior makes a bit more progress for him, but he doesn't want to take, you know, the Toxic on the switch, and then another round of Toxic, and it just, the damage starts adding up. So he's going to go Rotom and then predict my Seismitoad. Here I make a mid-ground. I knew he's, you know, it's a little bit too obvious. We've done the sequence about once or twice. It's a little bit too obvious that I can just go Toad and he doesn't have Toxic. So I'm going to make the mid-ground play into Tyranitar. Tyranitar still will check the Rotom Heat if he chooses to go for Discharge or Nasty Plot, not the end of the world. If he chooses to go for Overheat for damage on Toad, perfect, I eat that up. And I know that with the Ferrothorn in, I'm threatening this thing with a Banded Fire Punch. Now, I actually did have Banded Fire Punch up until like the last few iterations of me testing this team. I found that some Hippowdon cores could be really, really annoying. So I actually put Toxic as my fourth move on CB-Tar to help my Drill become a better threat and to help pressure down the Hippo for, you know, Togekiss, Rotom, everything basically. And Toxic was proving good, so I ended up dropping CB Fire Punch because you definitely want stabs and Heavy Slam. So I don't actually have Choice Banded Fire Punch. I think it's really, really bold of him for him not to scout that, because if I just clicked it there, you know, if I had it, it's a free click. I'd rather take the Banded Fire Punch damage on Rhyperior. I was thinking he would go Rhyperior to scout it. And I was thinking, you know, Clefable's a good mid-ground. If he decides to stay in, I'll eat the hit easily. And if he goes Rhyperior, even though Sand is up, because I'm physically defensive and pretty speedy, and have some speed at least, I should be able to kind of stall out the Rhyperior, you know, land a Moonblast, force it to take some Toxic damage. It'll be good for me still. And he decides to stay in, quite brave. I've Banded Fire Punch would have OHKO'd him, but, you know, I guess he called me on that. Here I think I make a misplay. I'm trying to, you know, I think him staying in is a bad play, but I think I should Flamethrower anyway, because Flamethrower still gets chip on Gengar and Rotom, and because of the sand turns, I'm still forcing 2 turns of sand on them, which is fantastic. Moonblast gets a little bit more chip, yes, but if he chooses to stay in, I just get very little benefit, and he gets a lot of benefit. I do think that his play was bad. I really don't think that was a good play, but I mean, and I know he's going to switch this time too. I 100% know, but I realized my mistake that, you know, hey, I should be going for Flamethrower on this Ferrothorn. I should not be giving it any free opportunity to spike. I'm still getting chip on whatever comes in. So I decide, you know what, he's going to switch there, but I'm just going to Flamethrower anyway to play it safe. And he goes for the Overheat on the switch. Now my Toad is low. I think this is probably the last play in this game that I think maybe I would have changed. Is I choose to knock off. In case he stays in, of course, fantastic, and if he chooses to go to Ferrothorn, I do knock it off, which is good. Now I'm finally making progress on wearing this thing down. But the thing I didn't like is that because of the Iron Barbs and the fact that spikes are up really, is that now that if I switch Seismitoad in on Rotom Heat, I am in range of Overheat. Previously, if I did not take that Iron Barbs, if I switched in on a Nasty Plot, I would be out of range of Overheat. Now I'm in range. So that's definitely something I have to keep in mind. I can't really properly use my Seismitoad to check Rotom anymore, so I'm kind of considering it like fodder for the Rhyperior. So he goes for a knockoff again. I go for a Moonblast to chip the Gengar. The Gengar comes in. Here I, just pray. I just go Tyranitar. I don't really have another option at this moment. I think he would, not go for the Poison move because I, also have Drill. But the fact that he doesn't go for the Focus Blast there makes me think he doesn't have it, and I am out of range of a Energy Bolt. I just go for a CB Crunch, and that's a 2-hit KO on Ripe. I think it's a bit of a roll, but it's highly in my favor with the Toxic. I think that was a mistake on his end. I think he should have just gone straight Hydreigon. I understand going Rhyperior to scout the move I was going to use, but I think I've managed to pull the situation such that I'm enough ahead that he needs to start, that's really unnecessary damage on his Rhyperior. And his Rhyperior is so good, I just feel like it's really a big waste to take that crunch, when Hydreigon is just really not important at all in my matchup, because I have 2 Fairies and Excadrill and Sand, so I think that was another misplay on his end. Here I'm going to go Togekiss. The reason I go Togekiss, of course, very safe on the U-turn, also because I specifically want to draw out the Gengar. I know that if he goes Gengar, I can live the Sludge Wave plus the Burn and Air Slash to knock him out. And that is fantastic. If I want Clefable, I don't really have that play in my arsenal. And once I knock out the Gengar, I feel like I feel like Clefable will just win the game. That's kind of my mind mentality here. Here he makes another massive error by misclicking on Primarina. He claims it's a misclick. I believe him. But it's, at the end of the day, it's still a mistake. You have to take, I feel like as a player, especially in such an important game like OST Finals, you don't just randomly click. You kind of have to take ownership of what you do. And I understand sometimes you're thinking really deep about a move and you just subconsciously, move your mouse over and click. And it's really unfortunate that he misclicked that because I get a free roost off of it. And not to say that it didn't matter. It definitely mattered. But I feel like I had the advantage anyway, and I was planning on being able to recover my Togekiss later on in the game versus Ferrothorn or Primarina. And I knew that I was in a position where I could set that up where either Togekiss or Clefable could win, regardless of that. So he should have gone Hard Rotom, my Clef would be lower. But I think my game plan relatively stays the same. And as you see here, this is again, the Rotom lands the Toxic on their Rotom. I think might have been a speed tie, I'm not sure. Usually when I run Volt Switch Rotom, I tend to run a little bit less speed and some bulk, so I'm purposely slower, and I am max speed Rotom on mine. I'm not Volt Switch on this one, I'm just Discharge Toxic. So that might not have been a speed tie. If it was a speed tie, definitely unfortunate that I won it and landed the Toxic, because you'll see that Toxic is absolutely massive, and it would have been completely wasted had he Volted to Rhyperior. Here I'm just going to sack my Toad. Don't need it. It's useless to me now. I just want to, get that toxic damage on Rhyperior. I'm going to go Drill to force this thing out. I expect him to go Rotom, but here's my mindset, he's either going to go Rotom or Ferrothorn. If he goes Ferrothorn, so be it. I can go Clefable, and he really can't punish me. Clefable is looking like one Calm Mind, and it just straight up wins. Whereas if he goes Rotom, it's a little bit harder for me to respond to, so I'd rather get the chip on the Rotom. And, I could spin, but it's just not worth it, It's just not worth it. I'd rather keep my Drill around. It helps with T-Tar a little bit. That's pretty much it. It's just T-Tar and Drill being affected by it, and it's not the end of the world. So, yeah, I still have Rotom Heat. I know that if he volts into Rhyperior, which is a good play, but I know that this is still a roll, or at least, well, it depends on his bulk. But I know I have a chance to kill, and I honestly don't value my Rotom Heat that much. I know it looks good versus him. I know it looks good. It looks like he can sweep, but I feel like, he has Hydreigon. He has Primarina that can take a neutral discharge. He still has his Rotom to volt around into Hydreigon. I just don't feel like I need the Rotom. I just don't need it, And yeah, this is where I was saying, I land the Toxic on the Primarina. Had my Togekiss been at 6%, I just come in here and roost now. He's not going to kill me either way. You know, obviously I'm going to end up way healthier, so I can't make the exact same sequence of plays that I do here. But regardless, I will get the roost off with my Togekiss, and once I do, I think it's game over. So now that I'm at full, I can actually easily stay in. A discharge will do, I think, like 35, 40, about as much as that Moonblast was doing. Really not that much, because Rotom is not that strong if it's not invested into special attack, and Togekiss is, again, really, really bulky. And he nasty plots. So this is fantastic for me. I can just sub again. There's no reason not to. He volts out to avoid the toxic damage from racking up. Goes Primarina. Very easy for me to just roost on this, as he goes for a Scald, breaks the sub. And I think he's in range of Air Slash now, so I just go for an Air Slash, knock him out. And my Togekiss is sitting really pretty at 70%. You'll see how much this does. He actually has Volt Switch plus Discharge. It does 38, and I just roosted off like that. Like, so easy to just roost it off. Here I know he's probably going to go for a nasty plot, but roost is very, very safe. Takes me up to near full. I know I'm going to knock him down really low. And I know that even if he goes for a Volt Switch as I go to T-Tar, I just don't need my T-Tar, dude. And, you know, if he stays in and discharges, damn, he's going to take Sand, he's going to take Poison, and he's going to be pretty much dead. He actually leaves it at 1, so I got to go Drill. Just go for a spin, no reason not to. It'll get the kill, it'll remove the hazards if I ever need to come back in, and he goes Ferrothorn. And now I can just freely go Clefable. Clefable, nothing punishes it. He can't double back to Rotom. Hydreigon can't really beat me. The only thing I can really be afraid of at this point is like a Flash Cannon sweeping me, but it can't really happen. I go for a Calm Mind just so that like Dark Pulse flinching, and crit's the only thing that can beat me, any crits and flinch, but it doesn't really matter. I heal up to full, knock out the Pharaoh. This game is a wrap, you know. Here I go Excadrill just to avoid discharge paralysis nonsense. I don't want him to have to like somehow manage to Dark Pulse through my entire team. And yeah, I actually live this Dark Pulse too and knock him out with Drill. So that was the series. I think, you know, had he played, you know, a little bit more on point with the Primarina, I think play a little bit more safe and cautious with that, I think I could have been in a really tough spot. If he was really, really smart about it, he would force my Toad to be in range of a Moonblast before ever bringing in his Primarina. And if he does that, I think I'm in a really bad spot. You know, then I have to go very offensive with my team. Here, you know, I could kind of take it slow. Get the chips on the right things, get the status on the right things, and then just slow roll him with Togekiss. Had he been a bit more offensive with his Primarina and a bit more careful with the choice specs, I think I would have been forced to use my Excadrill as a win con. I think definitely Excadrill was very potent as a win con. It looks like he could kind of, you know, get chip on Pharaoh, get some chip on the Rotom Heat, and I could really just sweep his team. But it definitely would have been an uphill climb. I think he definitely had the matchup advantage, but because my first few turns were really, really strong and he didn't really do anything that kind of flipped the script later in the game, I was able to take this one pretty comfortably. So yeah, that's the series. I hope you guys enjoyed, learned a bit about my teams. I think I shared the team 2, the second team, with the Rocky Helmet Como and Jirachi. I think I shared that one with Team of the Week. I think there's some Player of the Week coming too. So I know the paste of that is somewhere floating around on Smogon. So if you want to play with that team, try some of the things that are on it, you can definitely do that. And, you know, of course, feel free to recreate by teams if you really want to. I don't want to paste them. Just not that I'm really playing much right now, but you know, it doesn't take much effort to recreate them, so I kind of told you what sets I have anyway. So if you really want to recreate them and play with them, then yeah, definitely feel free to check that out. And thank you all for for watching this. You know, I know it's been a long time, so I hope I gave some good insight as to how I kind of went into the series, both preparation wise and play wise. So yeah, thank you everyone, and have a good day.